This is good.
But
I think I got it
I
correct.
just want to make a quick comment about Bob Nason. He would be so humbled by that proclamation, and he'd be so honored, because that was one of his big things of when you recognize people and put their name up. So, and he was wonderful to work with. He was tough. When I was on the school committee and we were negotiating, goodness. And once his daughter got up to the high school, he realized that, you know, teachers do hard work. And although he wouldn't listen to me, they give us a 25% raise, at least we got 2%. So we were happy. And then at every meeting of the league, every month, and it was how many years that he was with us, 5 years or so. I think he only missed 3 meetings. That was fantastic. I'm so happy that we're recognizing him. But if I can make one more comment, with my plaque is so high, it's got to be eye level. I guess none of you took art classes. It has to be eye level.
We can put it up there. We can lower it.
We'll put it up, lower that.
Right up there.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So now let me get to my order of business. I just want you to know that the tennis courts and the pickleball courts are finished. Peretti Tennis did a fantastic job. The gates have been locked so that the work could be done. So tomorrow we'll unlock the gates. And hopefully we'll be back in business. People have already come and asked when pickleball was going to be available and the nets and things like that. So we're happy. And the new playground equipment has been installed in both South Lee and Bradley Street. Thank you for the town of Lee for
Anybody else for a public comment, Rochelle?
Michelle Walker, 33 Olive Street. I just wanted to say thank you to the Select Board for organizing the informational forums so that we could review our legal options of rescinding our part of the Rest of River Agreement. Thank you for that. It was insightful to hear from an environmental attorney and a few other new voices that gave us a much needed fresh perspective. What I concluded after attending and rewatching both forums is that rescinding our part of the agreement is most likely not going to affect the permit and will not stop the dump. But it will most likely result in us losing oversight and input on the cleanup, as well as $25 million. Last Thursday at the forum, someone suggested that people in this town need to understand that a PCB dump is a true health threat. I find this to be an interesting statement, considering people who live in Lee have lived with a PCB dump flowing through our community since GE started dumping PCBs into the river almost 100 years ago. Any local families who have been here since the beginning of this horrible pollution, mine being one of them, has their own horror stories of the Housatonic River. Unfortunately, those generations before us have had to just deal with the PCBs flowing through our town. If we stick with this agreement, then we have a chance to make sure the future generations of our town will have a cleaner river, cleaner air, and less health threats than we were exposed to. As a lifelong member of this community and someone who will be living here for the next 50+ years, hopefully, I think it is in our best interest to keep our part of the agreement. Bob, Sean, and Gordon, as elected officials of this town, I hope you consider all future generations and community members when it's time to decide whether we will have a seat at the table for this cleanup now, and more importantly, for years to come. Thank you.
Same, Rochelle, the same for you too, if you want that included in the minutes.
Okay, yeah, I'll email you.
Sure, next comment.
I don't have anything written that's shocking because I usually write things down, but on my mind since those last couple of meetings up at the middle and high school, I really, I struggle with the same people coming to the meetings, the same people showing up and thinking about the thousands of people that live in our community. And And I feel like I think the same thing every time. And then I get a little nervous to say anything because of the aggression that comes afterward. But what I would like to say is I can only represent myself here. However, I do feel like from people that I talk to, much like Bob, you say the people you talk to, the people that I talk to, and I don't have any hard data to back it up. People count on the select board to do the work that the taxpayers, the residents in this town don't have the time, don't have the energy, don't have the wherewithal to do. And so what I'm asking of you is much like, I don't know what happens at this school anymore. I count on the school board to make decisions. I count on them to review and get details that I don't have the time to do. And I think I pay attention probably more than most. I'm counting on you as a select board to think about, I didn't even think about the future generations, Rochelle, but I am thinking about the whole town and what an informed decision that you can make as a select board that's doing more work than me or anyone else in reviewing this. So that's one of the things. And then my other would be just hoping that I wouldn't hire a teacher to advise me on this. I would hire a lawyer. So you've got the name Matt Powa came up a couple times last meeting. The rest of the river committee, their board came up a few times last meeting. It's my hope that you'll do more of that type of research if you're still trying to decide what to do, that you'll talk to Matt Powa again, that you'll talk to Chris Myram again, that you'll talk to Jeremiah again, that this, I don't know if I'm going to pronounce his name correctly, but Christoph Boniface, that you get information from people who are in the field of law, as well as the people who worked on this whole committee for so many years. We think we're tired of this. I think of the rest of the river group that worked on this for, I think, 7 or 8 years before it even came to this part. So I'm hoping that you'll do and take your responsibility, just like our school board does, just like our conservation commission does, just like our planning board does, that I personally feel like you need information than a regular citizen who checks a box that's non-binding that says rescind a deal, that they don't really have the information that they could. If it made any sense, but that's what's on my mind. Thank you.
Claire, I think we have the audio right, so I'm going to try to ask you to unmute. You have your hand up in the Zoom meeting. See if I can get her. There she is.
I'm unmuted.
We can hear you. Do you have a
Okay.
comment?
Yes, I do. I'm just trying to find something here. I'm sorry. Just a moment. Okay, I'm going to go off the here without any notes. But after listening to the 2 hearings and seeing that people are depending on attorneys to lead us in the discussion, I think it's necessary that the people in Lee understand that the law is behind the EPA and the industries, the GE, on what is happening right now. But what they have to recognize is that this is not a just decision. There are times when your government makes decisions that you have to start looking at your conscience and start thinking about whether it was right or not. And this is not a just decision. So what I'm hoping to see is that the Board of Selectmen recognize this and take away any stamp of approval by rescinding their vote on this and sending a letter to every stakeholder that voted on this, that they are rescinding their vote, and ask for their support and send it to the governor and to every politician out there citing the fact that this was unjust. There are times when you have to really get nasty about this because it's the sort of thing that people need to take a risk and to make a change in what is going on around the whole country that is wrong. And I would like to see our selectmen stand up to that. And that means people getting together and learning everything there is to know about this. All the documentation's out there. We know that it, by the Center for Toxicology for the government, the federal government has cited that it is hazardous to people's life, to children's lives. All the documentation is there. Nobody needs more documentation right now. The scientists have pronounced what it is. It's just we are believing what EPA and GE are feeding us, and we have to start doing a little recognition ourselves of the facts that are out there. The scientists, please recognize that and realize that you do not need any more research or documentation right now. And people in Lee, please trust that your selectmen have paid attention to what's going on and support them if they decide to go against this. I think that I don't feel there's any risk here at all. If there's a risk, we should be willing to take it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'd just like to point out that for the last 3 years, the people of Lee have spoken. They voted in new select board members. And I would say that, that in and of itself speaks volumes. And they're asking the select board to rescind. I know a lot of people are fearful and afraid. And that's a whole game that GE has played with us. And they have a lot more tactics and ability to manipulate their situation than any of us in this town. I think GE realizes that there's only like 5,000 people in this town, something like 4,200 voters. I think that's what you said a while ago, Chris. And the rest is children. So I think that, and we're a lower income town, and they picked on the, and so we need to stand up and say, no, this is not helpful to our public health. And anyone who wants to really read the science, it's there. And it will tell you that this is, and we all recognize that the river is an open sewer, but that doesn't mean you contaminate an aquifer and do further contamination, mucky up an area where new clean water comes into the area and flushes into the river and cleanses the river. And there's so many reasons not to site the dump there. And it's just really convenient for GE. And I'm a consultant, and I know what the games that they play. They picked 3 dump sites. They wanted Woods Pond. That's the games that they play. People always ask for more, especially these, high power corporations, more than they want. Just like the motel, probably more than what they want, because they figure this is really where I want to be. I'm going to ask for this much, because if they cut some back, everybody feels happy. It's psychology. And so I really hope that you listen to the townspeople, because they voted for you guys to change the situation. I realize some people are afraid, but nobody sanctioned the select board, our select board, to sign that agreement. As a matter of fact, the representatives told them to come back. So I don't see, just because somebody makes a mistake and, or jumps ahead and figures that they know best, doesn't necessarily mean that they do. And we all are human and we all make mistakes. It's just recognizing it. And if your townspeople are telling you, we still don't stand there and say, I don't care what you say, I think I did the right thing. Well, I realize that you're not representing us anymore. So please, because the representative system was in place at the time. If they weren't in place, I'm sure it would have been a binding, whatever you call it. Okay, so I really hope that you look at what people have been trying to tell you through who's been elected and the non-binding referendum, and listen to the science. I mean, PCBs are all over the world. GE has put them every place. And really what's going to work is there's a true remediation plan. And we really do need to wrap our senators and any legislatures in our state, and maybe outside our state, anyone who will listen. Right now, this certainly will not help, and it will not help with our fresh water either. So please come to the adjudicatory hearing. Everybody here, any citizen who wants to hear the science, please come to these meetings, because I think you will learn a lot. And I realize that some people really do follow the rules. Those rules. It's corporations government. And that's what we're facing right now. We are losing our say. And we have to stand up and say, no, we don't want our citizens to be jeopardized, our health to be jeopardized. Please.
Yeah. Like to anybody, we're still in public comment. If anybody has anything else they'd like to say briefly, anyone? See any hands on the Zoom, so we'll move on to general business. First order of general business, we have a ARPA funding request, and this is from Crossways, the Berkshire Housing, and
Should have two people on here,
Eileen Peltier.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have lost her when we didn't have unless she's the iPad. Eileen, are you the iPad? I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Get it. Let me just make sure there's another person as well.
All I have is Claire Leahy, Patty Carlino, and an iPad on the meeting right now.
Yeah, Chris McLaughlin is the other person coming. So if you want to skip ahead.
Yeah, let's jump ahead and we'll see if they come back. If not, maybe we can put it off till next meeting or come back, revisit it. So our next order of business is a discussion about LED streetlights. And now, basically, we have quite a few street lights in town, and by transitioning over to LED, it's a possibility that we could save some money, have some more efficient lighting, right, Chris?
Yeah, so
have some information for us regarding all this, right?
I added this tonight just as a preliminary discussion. The board knows I will not be at the September 20th meeting, but Paul Vessel from Real Term Energy will be coming, he's travels around the country. He's going to be in our area at that time. So he'll be able to answer more questions, but I kind of wanted to do a introduction now, if you will, to what he'll be talking about, just in case the board had any questions for me. But I did meet with them. Essentially, what we would do if the board chooses is all of the, I believe they're sodium lights that are there now. Those lights, first we would have to actually purchase them from Eversource, and there's a fee involved for that, which is in the proposals that you have. Once we own that infrastructure, then we would replace all of the fixtures with LED. If we were to, by doing that, the estimates show that the savings in energy would pay for themselves within about 5 years. And that's if we were to buy that, if we were to go to town meeting, look at it as a capital, part of our capital plan and pay for it all at once. There's also an option to lease, to own, which has a little longer. It's about a 8-year payback time where we would pay like a kind of a lease to own situation. And that would be about an 8-year payback, but it would be within it would actually save a little money on our current electric budget. So by converting to LED, we have a pretty significant savings in electrical costs. Because even though Eversource owns the lights, we pay the electric bill on them. And I know it's a little confusing that we have to buy the lights from Eversource first, but that's pretty much how it works in order for us to do the replacements. So that's a big chunk of it. So the proposals that Paul's going to talk about, I'm just pulling it up here, look at a total of 400 lights, 401 actually, which does not include Main Street. We already upgraded those to LEDs because we own those lights, where the ones on the poles we don't own right now. So it's 401 replacements. They considered about a 70% energy savings and about an 87% utility cost savings. And so the, again, the board has a choice of either a 10-year loan situation, which has an average annual payment of about $30,000, or just buying the, straight out, which is about $235,704 to do the replacement all in one shot, which would require a town meeting appropriation.
Chris, does that include the labor for anybody who comes around and does the bulb replacement? Or is that a separate issue aside from purchasing?
This is everything. The fixtures and the installation is what they're.
Include the installation.
We would be responsible for replacing.
What I just did, but it just.
For maintaining them after.
Yeah.
So
Crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry about that, Gordon. So they anticipate the 20-year net savings with the cost and the electricity savings over 20 years to save the town about $833,000 over 20 years, and that the project would pay back in about 5.5 years. So
the other question I have on this, through the chair, if
Yeah.
you don't mind, is there's LED comes in a number of different type features. There's a very bright white, and then there's kind of a mellow, warm. It's like, I don't want those super duper bright whites. I think that would drive everybody crazy. So how is that addressed in this issue? Talk about bothering everybody at night to sleep and disturbing animals and everything else. Yeah, it's like, I don't want to have to wear like sleeping things on my eyes.
yeah,
It's
so
bad enough now with the parking lot across the street and stuff from where I live. So.
probably tell you a little bit about the type of light. There is one other add-on to this. So that 235,000, if we change to what they call a smart LED light, which is about roughly $50,000 more, about $44,000 more for the smart LED, that actually allows through the DPW's computer to actually dim the lights at certain times. So right now, the lights we have with LED, they have a photo cell. When it gets dark, they go on 100%. When it gets light out, they go off, and that's the way they work. But if we upgrade, again, it's a little more money by about, I think, $44,000. They said that allows us the smart control. So if Gordon Bailey called up and said, just this light's driving me crazy after 10 o'clock when I go to sleep, we could program that one specific light to drop down to 50% at 10 o'clock if we wanted, which also adds other savings to it. It also gives us the like real-time information. Like if a bulb goes out, it's going to send Lenny a text and say, bulb just went out on Fairview Street. Somebody
Light number,
say,
yeah.
you know, whatever, yeah. And then it has other add-ons if you ever want to add security, video cameras, things like that. They can be added to the smart LED. So that's another option that we have. Otherwise, I mean, they are, from what my understanding, the regular run-of-the-mill LED it's just on full. That's what you have, and there's no adjustments to that. But otherwise, it's fully customizable with a smart option. So.
And do you know if this includes all the lights at the office, park, light industrial, the Quarry Hill Park?
I believe so they did do a full audit of our lights, and that is supposed to do everything on town accepted roads, which Quarry Hill is. So I would say tentatively yes, but if we go through this, they'll do a second audit to make sure.
That was a special and separate purchase.
Yeah.
When they did that.
If we purchase them, then it's probably not.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
not sure of.
So.
And that's why I think we need to check with it. Maybe the DPW will know.
Yeah, I mean, it's a town-owned road. We did
Yeah,
check on
I
that,
understand.
but it would probably be to see if it's on Eversource's list or ours, so.
I know that they did a specialty purchase down there because it wasn't the lights that were supposed to originally go there.
Okay,
And so Ken Laguerre at the time was superintendent. And he did some kind of a deal with them and they had a separate purchase. So I just want to know whether it is or isn't,
that's a good question, and we could find out. I don't have the full inventory with me
Yeah.
tonight, but.
I think it's a unique situation throughout the whole town. That's really kind of a unique setting that, as opposed to the rest of the town,
Like Main Street where
Yeah,
that was,
exactly.
so, yeah.
separate issue.
Um,
Thank you.
So, yeah, like I say, Paul will be here, but I won't, so I wanted to bring it up now for if there were any other questions, so.
Bob, did you have?
Yeah, no, so I'm the skeptic in me. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, we have all LED bulbs at my house, and when they first came out, hesitated, but then we went out and spent $300, $400 on LED bulbs at our old house, and the bill was cut in half. This is great. But about a year and a half later, the bill was back where it was because I was saving money, but the electric company wasn't.
You got it.
And so they raised the rates. And so I'm just wondering if and maybe he'll be able to tell us if there's going to be any kind of variation in the rates. Once we go through this, are we going to end up paying the same thing 2 years down the road after having done all this work?
I wonder if they'll lock in a rate or something.
they'll lock in a
over
rate or
certain
something
amount of
like
time.
that.
That would make sense, Bob.
Yeah.
And I would say now if rates go up, we're gonna spend more on the current sodium
Yeah.
lights as well.
Oh,
So
really?
whether they would raise it on account of this, I couldn't say, but it would be a good question. They've done this in a number of communities. So I'm sure they have.
And it does conserve energy, and that's
Mhm.
very important. That's
Mhm.
my primary reason for supporting it. But
All right, well, that was interesting, and so that will also, Paul will come next
Yep.
meeting, and he'll give us more information, we can ask more questions, okay? Our next order of business, MVP, HMP, ad hoc appointments, DPW board appointments, so is this appointments for,
Yeah, so in your packet, there should be a list which has the,
Let's
so
see
we,
it.
I gotta find that.
I didn't see it. Oh, you make up the packages?
Here we go.
I know years ago, they actually used to put like 4F,
Mhm.
4A, 4C, so that we could go through our packaging, kind of like.
yeah, I just without.
Well, when the
Yeah.
new clerical
Yeah.
staff. they're not putting the sign in.
Yeah, I've been,
Yeah. You may want to consider that right from the get-go, that we start a new policy. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, I
yeah,
did
have
see
it
that. I
different.
didn't know what that was. Here, I will come back. I apologize. I did see that somewhere.
So these are appointments. potential appointments that we would be making to the MVP, which is the mass vulnerability.
Talked about that one, Gail, so.
Right, I know I was supposed to be there.
So, and it's not that we can't add more, just to let you know, we can add more people to it, if you are still interested, but yeah, so. I know you were still considering that, so this is not the end all be all.
Yep, buried, yeah.
Okay.
That's what mine was buried too.
It's the same list, so.
Yeah, same list, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can, if you want me to,
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I can just tell you so there's a mixture of public safety as well as, because the HMP is the hazard mitigation plan, which is why police and fire are involved. And then, of course, we have the municipal vulnerability plan, which is where we have people more on that end of the spectrum. And there's a lot of this involves both current employees as well as public members as well.
So really, we're appointing this MVP, HMP. Is this a board?
Yeah, so it's an ad hoc committee to do the study. It's kind of like
Ad
a
hoc
master
committee.
plan.
Yep.
That will take about a year. So
Mhm.
this was grant funded, so we received a grant for $27,000. We currently have it out for requests for proposals to about 5 different consultants who will be sending us proposals to put this together. So very similar to the master plan.
Mhm.
These are kind of the type of people who are typically involved in this, so.
So just so that everybody can know who we're looking at here, for the MVP, HMP, which is the mass vulnerability plan, and the, like you said, hazard mitigation plan. For this committee, we would be potentially appointing Craig DeSantis, our police chief, Ryan Brown, our fire chief, Lenny Tisdale, our DPW superintendent, Beth Mead, the planning and zoning assistant, Chris Britton, our town administrator, Joan Angelo from the Greener Gateway Committee. Is that Yuli Nagel? Yuli Nagel from just the public member, and then Sarah Navin from the assessors.
And then we have 2 other two other public members that we're still, Gail being one of them, that we're waiting to hear from too.
And there's not necessarily a limit to
There's
this.
no limit, no, and we can add them later. So
5,
this was
6,
just
7.
kind of to get things started. We don't have bids coming in till the end of the month. Or bids, I say proposals, so.
So right now, this is an 8-member committee.
Right, yep.
Unless there's any further discussion, I'd ask for a motion.
Motion that we formalize the MVP ad hoc committee with all the previously named members.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? On all those,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Sure.
I was trying to understand these.
yeah, come to the mic.
Just so people get at home can hear you. Yeah.
The microphone.
Garcia from 61 West Park Street. I'm just trying to understand, because I know there's a lot of things happening. There's the master plan and the open space plan. Does that fall under this part?
No, that's a different one. Yeah, so this is the one that this says, they do them together as a grant when you apply for the grant. So the hazard mitigation is dealing more with public safety, and then the municipal vulnerability is dealing with climate change. But there is public safety issues that come about from climate change, like with severe weather, that sort of thing, which is why they kind of put those together. So one of the things, for example, they might look at in a hazard mitigation is that we have no generator, for example, at the DPW garage.
Okay.
And they might look at it and say, from a public safety standpoint, that's where we get our fuel. If the tornado came through or whatever because of climate change and cause a power outage, and this is something that we need to mitigate, and so, but it also, like, we had talked, it could be related to drainage, it could be related to some type of species that is threatened, et cetera.
Yeah.
Wetland situations, heavy rain events that we didn't have before, things of that nature. So it's kind of a weird mix, but they do combine it
This,
into one plan.
this year was drought, you know?
Right, this year was drought, last year was too much rain. But, so, okay, so the is the
This one,
culvert, this is the one, the culvert
that's
replacement.
part of the MVP.
Okay, and the master plan, the open space
That's not,
part,
oh, that's different.
Yeah,
It's a different-
the master plan and the open space and recreational kind of getting lumped together in the same, similar way to the MVP, HMP stuff.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of overlap there, but that's a different committee, different group. We're meeting tomorrow if you want to come right here.
okay, I'll come.
That's
check
a
it
planning
out.
board.
I can't remember if it's 6 or 7.
Oh, all right, I see. Okay, and what time are you meeting tomorrow?
Seven, I
Is it
believe.
7? I couldn't remember if it was 6.
And they're actually gonna meet.
Oh, it's posted. It's posted. Are we meeting upstairs? I thought
Upstairs,
so.
yeah. Concom is downstairs.
For clarifying it. I'm really interested in the culvert.
Yeah, just let me know, because we can, like I say, we're not, this was just the first batch of confirmed, so.
So I have a motion and a second for this. I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of appointing said members to the MVP, HMP.
Aye.
Aye. And that doesn't mean that we can't have more members to this. Next order of business. We have an alternate building commissioner appointment, Ned Baldwin. So right now, I think I kind of explained this last meeting. Bob, you weren't here. Right now, we don't have an alternate building commissioner, which really only comes about when when a town has a building commissioner who lives in the town, because he is unable to issue himself a building permit, and neither is his assistant. So in the event that our building commissioner who lives in town would like to take out a building permit, we would need an alternate commissioner. So that's what this is all about.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Use myself for a moment to talk to the people from Berkshire Housing that are trying to get in.
Bob, do you have any questions about that?
no, Ned has been the building inspector in Stockbridge for many years, and I've had the opportunity to work with him. He's quite competent, so I would make a motion that we appoint Ned Baldwin, the alternate building.
I will second that. And if there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next, next order of business, we have a sale of fire engine 3. And this sale is actually going to another municipality. I don't know if there was a prompt in here, but essentially yeah, there we go. Yep. Engine number 3, 1996 year.
Yeah.
So we're selling it for 10 grand, and we're buying a new fire engine for the guys in the EMS fire department. That was all appropriated with town money. This is just to sell. So I would need a motion to approve the sale, right? Correct?
Yeah, so in the other part passed for Ned Baldwin.
Ned Baldwin,
Yes,
we
just so my
passed.
notes.
Yes,
I abstain.
yes.
From
One
discussion
abstention.
So, yeah, so when as you all know, we're getting a new fire engine. It should be here by the end of the calendar year. That was done on a bond 2 town meetings ago. So if we sell this to another municipality, which is what we're looking at doing now, then it just requires the vote of the select board to do that. If we don't sell it, then it goes to auction. Auction right now for that type of engine is getting around 8,500. We had an offer from another municipality. So this would just be to approve that. So
And for the sake of discussion, I'll move we approve the sale of fire engine number 3 for $10,000.
I'll second that.
Discussion? Bob? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next order of business, we have so Roses, who is doing business as FDR Food Group, they made I don't know if it's a blunder or what you want to call it, but there was with their application, they didn't include their pledge for their alcohol license. Yeah, I got it right here. So,
Okay, good enough.
so,
Yeah, believe what happened is the lender asked that after they had already done it.
after
wanted
the,
the
right, that's what
pledge,
it was. Yeah.
So it's just a collateral pledge on their license for the lender. And it just requires a vote of the board, no public hearing to make that change.
So, if either of you are,
This is the copy of the pledge. To
yeah.
Adams Community
Yep.
Bank.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we accept the adjustment to the application for a new license by approving the documentation on the pledge information.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next order of business, Berkshire MPO appointment, and I think we have one, Gordon. You expressed interest.
I've been I was on the MPO for years before. That's, and fought to get Sheringham Road redone. Got it stepped up one year cycle from another town.
Those nice Gabion walls.
Yeah, what can you do? That was the design, not the money.
I actually,
But I
I
fought
like
for
it.
the money.
I like it.
But it was a very interesting process, I have to tell you, to get there, and because all the towns are all looking to do projects and prepare for projects and bridge projects that are years out from being funded. So, and usually not completely funded. So it's quite an interesting discussion among the towns to try and figure out how to prioritize.
Yeah.
So we go through a lot of data information and a lot of discussions. And I found it a very interesting process, and more than happy to come back and report to the board after any MPO meeting to keep you apprised of what's happening in the region. It's a regional issue through Berkshire Regional Planning.
Well, thank you for being willing to step up.
I'm willing to try it.
I'll make a motion that we approve Gordon Bailey for our Berkshire MPO appointee.
Second. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain from the discussion or from the vote.
You may want to just see if Eileen is trying to get in.
Oh, yeah. I don't have anyone yet. Next order of business, Elizabeth Freeman, that is, sorry, Lee Outlets. So this is a temporary sign permit. And I have,
Yeah, so Elizabeth, there's two separate permits. Elizabeth Freeman is a nonprofit, so we would be asking to approve that. That's for their annual charity drive, just for some lawn signs. And that's being asked to be approved with no fee for the fee waiver. The other one for the outlets is a for-profit venture.
I see.
I'd make a motion to approve the temporary permits for the Elizabeth Freeman Center and waive the fee.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now, that brings us to the Lee Outlets temporary sign permit, which, if you believe it or not, add these somewhere, shuffle.
8x10 color glossies.
All right, sticking in there. Here we go. Just so you can see these two, Bob, 'cause I kind of thumbed through them, but there's obviously the outlets, and then here's going to be kind of their setup for their temporary sign.
Yeah, what's it for?
Well, ribeyes.
Just trying to understand, is it for a week or a month or?
Yeah.
I think it's for, if I remember, came in late in our package.
Mhm.
Yeah.
In fact, it's not in the package.
Yeah, I don't seem to have the.
I went and talked to the building department about it because we had no visual documentation.
Mhm.
Right.
And I think that it's something like, starting on, like the 2nd to the 18th.
Yes.
Okay.
Isn't that
Yeah.
2nd to the 18th or 6th to the 18th? Anyway, it's short term. It's a for-profit event. I don't know anything about who gets the money or what they do. with it. But they're asking for a temporary permit. They're actually not set up at the outlet village. My understanding is they're going to be set up across the street at the bottom
Right.
of the entry to the prime outlets, and they're over in where the sheds used to be.
Over near the turnpike.
Yes, it
Yeah.
abuts the turnpike, so it's going to be in a separate location, but it's owned by the outlet.
Okay.
That's all, that's the only thing I know about it.
They'll be selling frozen meat.
Yeah.
Oh, frozen meat.
Yeah.
They're not really competing with another business in town or anything.
Not in that way.
Yeah.
As it said, the sign says 20 ribeyes
20
for
ribeyes,
$40.
yeah.
I don't know. Whatever that means.
Well, there is
Yeah.
other stuff here, steak, chicken, pork, seafood.
On their sign.
Yeah, so,
It's a big sign, but it's a very short-term issue. I don't know if I really have a problem with it. It's one of
Mhm.
the short-term, not on any other business we have in town. I don't think they'll be taking any.
I think it's for another week and a half.
Yeah. It's not for long, 10 days, something like that.
mhm,
They'll pay for the permit.
okay.
I just have, what,
I believe it's the second to the
Yeah, I don't have,
18th. No, now.
Oh, for now.
Yeah, it's just like,
Like if you drive by, it's probably there today. I'm just
they
saying.
just don't have a sign.
They just came in late and it's kind of like matters not recorded, you know. And if we wait till the next meeting, it'll be over. So we
Right.
took it on to try and help them out. So.
we could decide to approve this or not. Either,
I just wish they would have been more timely, but it was, we were told it's because they're not from the area.
there's the location.
They're just coming in. So I don't know what,
Yes.
the liability is all on prime outlets for the lot
Mhm.
and for, for people stopping to purchase. So
So who's the applicant here? Is it the premium outlets or
Yeah.
I
Corey?
believe
I
that's.
think so.
I believe
So
that
make-
was-
Corey Gatlin.
He's the applicant, okay. So I'll make a motion that we approve the temporary sign permit for Corey Gatlin for the aforementioned dates.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay. No further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. Yeah,
I don't know if I want to buy frozen meat out of the back of a truck. Just kind of like,
Doesn't everybody?
okay. It's like,
Doesn't
you get it,
everybody?
tell me how it tastes.
we did. We approved Elizabeth Freeman and we
Yes, we did.
approved the Lee outlets. We waived the fee for Elizabeth Freeman. Next order of business, we have a few gas permits here. Nope. I have one for George Street and then I have two for Erskine Drive, 70 and 65 Erskine Drive. So, the one on the one on George Street, is a gas main leak repair.
Mhm.
It's pretty crude drawn map, but,
Very.
assuming it's in I don't know, there's a written burn there. I'm not
I
sure
know,
what that's.
I think maybe they had a little fire.
Okay. But near the number 9, and near 190, so that's what this is, and it's
Yeah.
approved by our DPW and police board, so, unless somebody has an issue, I'd ask for a motion.
To approve the Berkshire Gas Company's permit application for the repair at 190 George Street,
I'll second-
near 190
Near
George Street.
one,
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I've got two here, so, for 65, it's an installation of new gas services. This is Erskine Drive. Service run from the same edge of the road, left side of house.
Mr. Chairman, do you have the sign off side of that? Okay.
Yeah, I
'Cause I
do.
don't have it
Yeah.
on my copy.
Yeah, I've got the sign
So
off
it's all
the
set.
side here, yep.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
I'd approve, since it's signed off by both police detail and DPW for location, I'd make a motion that we sign off on both Erskine Drive. Agents from Berkshire.
Erskine Drive 65 and 70.
That's correct.
I'll second.
There's no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have no pending business. Town administrator. Chris, that's you.
Yeah, so let me first just mention, I'm very happy to report that Sabrina will be starting with the board at the next meeting on the 20th. So we won't have to struggle through my packets lately. I'm sure they'll be much more improved when we have someone full-time working on those. But thank you for your patience with my notes and packets that I've been sending you, since Cindy left. I did have a couple other updates. First off, on some grants. So I have good news, and actually, Kathy, I'm going to do this to you again that I didn't tell you ahead of time because I just heard this afternoon that we did get $25,000 for hiring a consultant to do a study on 300 Stockbridge Road. We also received $27,000 for a capital improvement plan as well, for a consultant on that as well. So, and yeah.
What's 300?
Oh, the land that the town owns.
It was the proposed community center. Yeah.
Where the community center is talked about. That is not happening. We're looking at what are some possibilities that could be done. Yeah. Mostly looking at how it, there's agricultural land up there as well as natural resources, and how we can continue to preserve those and maybe offer some recreation up there as well. So I did want to mention those two, and then also quick rest of river update. The most recent update, GE's initiating sampling of sediment and riverbanks in the Reach 5A, which is considered the Pittsfield Reach. That's a 6-month program. There's also the 5th interim baseline monitoring plan for surface water, currently underway, will be completed by August 30th, which happened then. And that EPA will collect a sample for quality control purposes. And the 3rd 2022 quarterly dam inspection at Rising Pond and Woods Pond happened actually today. So
I went this morning to, I was able to speak with not only the administrator who sees the inspection of the dams, but the actual inspector himself. And my main question was in terms of the dams from Pittsfield to south. Are there any problems with the integrity of the dams? Is there anything that we should be concerned about? Should Stockbridge be concerned about Lee dams failing and PCBs rushing in there? And the answer is no. We dam reports and inspection reports, and they are at very least satisfactory. They inspect them at least 4 times a year, and then they do in-depth inspections and underwater inspections every 2 years or so. And the only dam that has any kind of integrity problem is actually the Rising Dam.
Yeah.
And they've dealt with that by using the bags full of grout, if you can believe it, and they piled it up, and that's evidently that has done the job. But they're on top of it, and there are no concerns with the dams for us or any town downstream.
Thank you.
yeah, my other part of that I just wanted to mention, and this was spoke of before, but the planning board did appoint a master plan committee. Their first meeting is going to be here tomorrow at 7 o'clock. So that will be starting. And then also we just finished the first phase of the public safety feasibility study. It's just wrapping up, which was the needs assessment. And so we will start to move on to the next part soon, hopefully next month, with the location part of the study next. So just giving you an update.
How long does it take before they come up with a written report for us to review?
So we're hoping to have that by spring. So, yeah.
So it takes a while for the written report.
Yeah, oh, that'll include, so the written report will include a proposed location, renderings, floor plans, total square footage, and professional cost
Is
estimates.
there a way to get a draft report of just the assessment use?
Yeah, I can send that to you.
I appreciate
Yeah,
seeing that.
it's not final yet.
No, no,
The
I get that it's a
department heads
draft.
are meeting
Okay.
this week to kind of finalize, but I can definitely share it. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, or
Yeah.
Sean, if I may. So we just have, you have rest of the river updates. Or we just had two meetings at the school. We all learned a lot, I'm sure. I think people know more than before we had those two meetings. But is now the time to talk about when we want to put it
I
out?
actually wanted to, can we backtrack before we get into that? Can we
Yes.
backtrack? Because I've got Eileen Peltier
Oh, sure.
actually
Yeah.
finally joined us. Sorry, I must apologize. We were having some audio difficulties. But we're going to backtrack here. We have a ARPA funding request from you. And so if you'd like to speak to that, be my guest.
Okay, sure. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. Sorry, I think we had the wrong, Chris and I had the wrong link, but he sends his apologies. I told him he was still in his office and I just told him to start driving home. So he won't be able to join us. But the Crossway Village and Crossway Tower is actually owned by Elder Services. So I was referring to Chris McLaughlin. So he would have joined us, but Berkshire Housing has managed it since its inception. So I can certainly represent this request. You got a letter from us from the end of August. Basically, we are requesting or we have about $184,000 worth of work. We know that may not be what you have available, but we wanted to sort of just share the whole perspective. And obviously we would be thrilled with any support you can provide. But the short version of the story is in the past, probably about 4 or 5 years ago, HUD started changing the way that they financially support these projects. And over time, so it's called a HUD 202 project. We are actually experiencing this in other 202s in our portfolios. It's actually a national challenge right now. And our understanding is that HUD is coming out with a new approach by the end of this year, which will help, but will require us to do a kind of significant ownership and structural changeover, which will probably take 2 to 3 years. So what we're doing is basically trying to manage our, capital improvements the best we can over these next couple of years until we can get that restructure done. So when we realized that, the town of Lee potentially had some ARPA funds available, it seemed like a good request to just help us stay on top of some much needed capital work and really kind of keep us going until we can do that restructure, which is probably about, well, if HUD really does it by the end of the year, it will be at least 2, maybe 3 years out. So, you can read the letter, but that's basically the gist of the challenge. And the pricing that we have is, estimates from contractors in the community. So they should be pretty accurate. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, just to break that down a little bit, the roof, 68,000, repairs and remediation to flooded unit, 50,000, fire door work, 29,350, water heater tank, 25,000, ramp to community room, 8,750, and then a chiller. What's a chiller? It's $3,000.
Oh, it's part of the, for the AC, the air conditioning unit. It's just a, and these are sort of emergent things that we need to do right now. I mean, I don't want to misrepresent this. We do have some reserves. It's not that we have literally nothing. Obviously, we are. It's more about looking at this 2 to 3 year trajectory and recognizing that we're not going to have adequate reserves to keep us going until we can restructure. What I kind of often refer to as sort of we're in the duct tape period of the project. Well, obviously we're not literally fixing things with duct tape, but it kind of feels like that. And we got to sort of extend that as long as we can till we can recapitalize. So these are kind of the emergent things that we need to do right now.
So we do have 200,000 and change in ARPA funds. So I suppose we, you know, we could yeah, I mean, we could allocate this money for that, for these purposes. I'm wondering the rest of the board's thoughts.
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Mhm.
couple questions, just, yeah, real quickly, thank you for coming here. So let's say the worst case is we don't have the ARPA money. What would you have done? Like, do you have to raise rents? Do you have to
No, so.
rob a Paul, or just stagger things out a little further?
No, so what we do, the way these projects are structured, you know, we cannot raise rents unless there is, you know, a market increase and HUD approves that rent increase, which is kind of part of the problem. HUD's basically just sort of ignoring what's happening with the market and going, here's 3%. So that's why these projects are getting behind. But no, at the end of the day, the owner, Elder Services in this case, would have to come up with the money. And they're not typically in a position to do that. They could potentially, what would probably happen is if they ended up putting money to, they would loan it to the property. And then when I say restructure, we create a whole new ownership structure. And at that point, they could probably get paid back. You know, so if we had no money and there was no ARPA money available, Elder Services, I mean, if they could afford it, would do it. If they couldn't afford it, you know, Berkshire Housing, because it's part of our mission and we're not going to let these properties fail, we would probably loan to it. We'd cobble it together somehow. So I'm not going to tell you it's an impossibility. But my concern is that everything I just described might get us through, you know, a year and a half, but I just know these properties are getting older and there's going to be more things. So the opportunity of accessing ARPA now, sort of giving us a little bit of leg up, and then we still have the worst case scenario of going to Elder Services or, you know, Berkshire Housing and using our, you know, reserves to make that happen if we have to, because I think it's relatively plausible that we may get there before we can restructure.
You want to go back?
Just a couple of questions. Chris, what's the actual amount of ARPA money we have available?
Well, the total balance
Yes.
was 237,912. That has not been appropriated elsewhere.
Right.
Leaves us about 57, 53, 50, something like that.
And do we know, are there any other applicants, as far as you know, on the horizon for ARPA?
That I'm aware of. There's a couple of projects, like the water sewer infrastructure, that it has a good chunk of the money that we're still getting more details on. So those are both with, there's 3 roads that Ty and Bond has been looking at, and right now we're on track, but there's still some unanswered questions on it. So that could be the only thing I can think of, what we currently have done that may need a little more money depending on what happens with construction costs and so forth.
Do we know when we're going to get those estimates with
Not offhand when the exact, I mean, we have the stuff for Main Street now. There's 2 other streets we're looking at that are still could fluctuate a little. I don't anticipate being a huge amount, but the other things are all pretty much set. I don't anticipate much fluctuation in anything else that's on there. Those are the water sewer infrastructure is the only ones that may have some potential change in it. But
Anything else?
No, I guess what I'm trying to figure out is obviously this is these projects are obviously needed, but I'm also concerned about not being caught short for other work that's also necessary, and I'm wondering whether we can maybe do a partial.
That's what I was.
Yeah.
I
I was going to ask yes, through the chair, to Ms. Pelletier. Do you have a priority list of what things are like is the roof leaking, or is it just, you know, like, do you have a priority list of things you want to fully fund immediately? like the chiller, maybe that could wait till spring, maybe, while we may end up eventually giving you everything, but like, is there some kind of staggered program we could consider?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to approach it would be to do whatever you're comfortable with now. And I'm not the director of facilities, so I don't want to prioritize, but then we'll just prioritize. And if you find that, you have funds left over, the last sort of bits of your ARPA money, and you want to send it our way, we'd be happy to take it. But I think just doing it that way versus, you sort of picking and choosing, because as I said, well, as Chris just mentioned, these prices were good when I wrote this letter on August 29th. So, they're not an exact science. So I think whatever number you're comfortable with, we'd be happy to, receive. And then if you being aware of the overall situation with the Crossway Village and Towers, we could put another request in the future, or you could use this one.
And we had a similar thing with a couple of the CARES money situations. When it got down to the deadline, we were able to go back to certain applicants and offer additional funds. So
do you know what condition the flooded unit is in? I mean, is it habitable? Should
No.
that be?
No, so that's
not.
one we really
Yeah.
want to prioritize because we want to get it back online, obviously.
That's definitely something that I would like to act
I
on.
agree. So I mean, I can either see doing the 84,100 or doing 100,000 even or something, but I think to stagger it in just because we don't know what else may be coming in, and it would certainly be a sign of good faith on our part too. That's quite a chunk of money, to get them going forward. And I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, to get the money into that and get that thing occupied again. That unit occupied would be a priority, I would think, for them. And these are Lee residents.
Oh yeah,
helping. So I'd be happy with either of those, whatever. If someone were to think differently.
Well, suppose we were to split. We said there's 237.
230. Yeah.
So I'll make a motion for the sake of talking about it, that we approve $120,000 for elder services to do the set of improvements.
It seems like 120 for purposes of the discussion would certainly take care of the flooded unit. That seems to be the most important thing. And then
the roof as well.
And possibly the roof, and there again, the fire door.
You might have
if
to
there's
wait.
an event,
Yeah.
they may need to actually do that.
Those
I don't know
first
what the
three
status
things.
is. Could be they can't get a certificate of inspection without those fire doors done, and you don't want that to happen.
Right.
I
So
mean, we
again,
can make those choices. And like I said, if Berkshire Housing needs to, or Elder Services needs to loan, I think we're committed to doing the work on this piece of paper one way or the other, because they're kind of emergent things in our mind. So whatever you can contribute, we'll fill in the rest, and whatever it ends up costing. But this will help us to sort of keep the money under the pillow for these kinds of things lasting until we're able to recapitalize in 3 years or 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not trying to tell them what to do. I'm just saying that in my mind,
Yeah.
I
Well, and I'm not
justify.
trying to tell my team what to do either. It's not,
But I feel like I can justify, putting money toward those sections and putting off other things, I feel comfortable with that. So that's the only reason I was mentioning specific issues. Other than that, I get it. We're going to give you the money. You're going to do it what you have to do.
Got it.
Yeah, this isn't like a town meeting appropriation, so they're not held by like that. But so yeah, I have a motion for 120,000. So and I have a second, unless there's any further discussion or somebody would like to change the amount, I'm comfortable with that. No further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. We'll get you started anyway. We didn't
Much
we
appreciated. And I don't know
the
if
total 184, but
that 120 is fabulous. If you'd like a 60-second update on Eagle Mill, I can provide that if you'd like.
Thank you.
So we are, I know we talked to the planning committee recently, but basically we're still on track for closing the end of January. We're working our way through a sort of a special round of funding through the state for projects like ours that, you know, had gaps. But we did receive substantial funding from the Regional Planning Commission, from the Brownfield Fund, which was basically the state closing the rest of the gap was contingent on that money happening. That did happen around August 20th or around there. So we're feeling pretty confident that we are finally going to get this thing closed and under construction in the early part of 23.
Thank you. So I guess we were done with everything. Bob, did you want to pick up kind of where you left off? I kind of cut you
Yeah,
off
I just, people are wondering where we're going to go next with the rest of the river agreement. We had 2 hearings that I found very helpful. I think a lot of people found helpful, thought they went well. But what is our next step? I mean, we have to have some sort of public discussion about how we want to proceed. Can we get it out? Well, you're not going to be here for the next meeting, Chris, and I'd like you to be a part of it too. So.
Yeah, so we can add that to the agenda for the 1st October meeting, if that is good with the board. I don't have the date offhand, but the first meeting of October, that'll be the first Tuesday of October.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. We definitely we need to continue the conversation for sure. Yeah, unfortunately, I tested positive for COVID last week, wasn't able to be there, so that was frustrating for me as well. I definitely think I did watch it. It was very, very informative. And I think that there's a lot of good points that I think come up. I think that we just need to focus on those and not get into pointing fingers or you know, fighting amongst ourselves. Way to speak, because that sort of happened a little bit. Anyway, that sounds good. First meeting in October, we'll pick that back up, and our next. Oh, Bob, go ahead, Gordon. I was just going to say our next scheduled meeting is the 20th, but
Well, if
you'd like to.
No, we had a draft as part of our meeting. We were asked if we would be willing to forward a notice or a public.
Correct, yeah.
Public information request, a freedom of information request. So we have a draft in front of us, and maybe we could talk about that at the next meeting after we have a chance to review it and get some input. So we are moving forward on what Bill Matthews had asked us to look into as far as some freedom of information from the EPA. So we're going to be reviewing that and getting that letter off. But I think we need, you know, it was just given to us tonight before the meeting. So we just want to review that and make sure that we don't want to add or change any of the language, and then get that off to the EPA for the information that we're requesting.
And that was the last part of my report before Eileen came in, but that's okay. It was just that I was giving you a draft. No problem. And then, and then we would be for signing at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Let me know if there's any changes between now and a week from today.
Sure.
And I'll have it ready for September 20th.
Gail, did you want to say something?
Because I would like to see requested, well, and I don't know them now or.
Yeah, I mean, well, we are I'd be happy to get any feedback, and we are in a.
Sure.
This isn't posted on the meeting, so I would caution the board not to get too much into it.
Right.
We can discuss it next meeting when we ultimately.
I can forward those suggestions to the board.
I don't even know what's being asked already, so you might have heard me.
Yeah, so my report was just to say that at the meeting on September 1st, the board mentioned that they would, I think it came from Bill Matthews and Josh Bloom had asked about when we do a FOIA request on information specifically that was brought up, any studies about rail transportation. So this was just following up. That was just following up on that the board was asked to do that. Bob and Gordon said they would like to. So I just prepared a draft, but it was specifically details on rail transportation, so.
Okay, I have something else.
And you can, of course, do that on your own too as well, so that's right.
You have a
No, just, Mr. Chairman, just to the chair, if you want to get any other kind of information, I mean, we can do it in multiple sections here. It doesn't have to be one letter.
right.
So if we can get this off to get it started to meet our, what Bob and I both thought was a good idea. And we'd like to get that off to get the ball started there. And there may be several other requests for information, not only from us, but if the Board of Health ends up doing some kind of adjudicatory hearings, they may wish to send their own, for asking for different information specific to what they have to look at. This is more specific to things that we may be able to request assistance through the permit if it goes that far. But it gives us some good background information to review.
So, yeah, so if there's nothing further, our next scheduled meeting is September 20th. I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Done deal. Sure.